new LinkedIn Hiring Pro can't undo your last hire, the no-show. Who set you back because they didn't show up on day one, or day two, or ever again. And now your product launch is delayed because you're talking to alien abduction podcasters to track them down. But LinkedIn Hiring Pro can help make sure your next hire sticks. In fact, businesses who use LinkedIn are 24% less likely to reopen a role in the next 12 months. Hire right the first time with LinkedIn Hiring Pro. Post a free job today at linkedin.com/quality.
This episode is brought to you by Accenture. When your advertising operations fall out of sync, everything else follows. Spotify and Accenture are working together to reinvent the rhythm of ad sales, using automation, analytics, and smarter workflows to simplify campaign delivery and access better data across the business. The result? Less time spent on operations, more time connecting brands with the moments and fandoms that matter most. Learn more at accenture.com/Spotify.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Dr. Psych Mom Show. Today, I am going to be talking about what is positive about being married to somebody with avoidant attachment. So, benefits of an avoidant partner. And before I get to that, please do subscribe. My most recent subscriber episode was Don't Stop Your Kids from Dating. And if you are an anxious or overprotective parent or married to one, then this will be interesting for you. Okay. And of course, about 230 other episodes if you subscribe. Now, a lot of people think that there are no benefits to being married to an avoidant partner, and it's a very individual decision long term, whether you want to stay with somebody who, is more avoidant. And of course, couples counseling can help, but they can't fully make somebody, it can, all right, I'm speaking too strongly. You can change attachment style with deep work and therapy. That is kind of the point, is that you become more securely attached. However, you have to want to. So a lot of more avoidant people don't want to. Preoccupied people, they do want to grow more secure because it feels so constantly bad to be preoccupied. You're always worried about your relationship. You're obsessing about what the person did or said, so nobody wants to be preoccupied. But avoidant people don't mind being avoidant attachment. It's protective, right? It keeps you focused on you and yourself. You don't have to worry about anybody else. You don't have to be dependent. You don't have to be at risk of being harmed. If you're not vulnerable, then nobody can hurt you. If you don't play the game, then you can't lose the game, right? So a lot of avoidant people will not really try to do deep internal individual work to understand the roots of their avoidant attachment and to try to grow more vulnerable and close. They just won't. If they do, then they can, right? I mean, people can stop being drug addicts. So obviously people can change their attachment style, but it's just a matter of will they want to do that deep work, right? Let's say they don't. So let's say they say, I'm fine, I understand you want me to act more romantic or more close or more this or that, and I'm going to try, but, they still skew avoidant. And you know what, even after all that deep insight-oriented therapy, still the default is to be independent and to not want to talk much about feelings. So what are then the benefits of these people? Well, I'll be blunt. They let you do whatever you want. And I have linked to a podcast it's called You Can't Get a Woman Obsessed with You Who Lets You Leave All the Time. And I talk about men who have been very successful in their careers because their wife would not ever dream of asking them to come home early or exerting any demand on them whatsoever to spend time at home or with the family or anything. And therefore, they were able to do whatever the hell they wanted, which built them a huge business, for example, or allowed them to be a doctor or a lawyer or whatever that allowed them to have any kind of work travel or commitments or late nights or whatever. And so when somebody doesn't need you, then you have a lot of leeway to live your life in whatever way is the most meaningful to you. The one way that an avoidant partner is not as fulfilling is within the marriage. But what % of your life is your marriage? Not all of it. So women that are married to an avoidant man, they can decide what the family does. They are the main parent. They are the decision maker. And while it is on trend to say that making decisions is terrible, it's not, Having autonomy is great. So for everybody who says that they don't want to pick out dinner, many of those women still want to pick out the preschool and they want to pick out the family destination. Now, if you are somebody who really hates decision making completely and is entirely dependent on another human being, well, you know what? You lucked out too with your avoidant partner, because as long as they're not criticized, they will make every decision, any decision that you want. It will always be in line with their own interests, but they will make all the decisions. You'll be eating their favorite food every night, but so what? If you hate decision making that much, then an avoidant is much better than somebody with preoccupied attachment who will always be up your ass to make the decisions because they don't want to have the potential fallout of making the wrong decision. So an avoidant partner, for anything that you want to do besides be emotionally vulnerable, they are good at it. They pride themselves on being good at a lot of things, because the avoidant attachment also makes you not want to take risks of putting all your eggs in one basket in any sense, right? So they don't want to put their eggs in one basket in a relationship by being too needy and too dependent on one person. So they also don't want to be too dependent on one hobby, one friend, one career path. They always want to keep their options open. So they tend to want to be good at everything. Or they say, oh, I want to be like be an 80% at everything instead of like 100% at something and a 0% at some other thing, right? They want to be good at everything. They want to be well-rounded. They want to be knowledgeable across arenas. So they have like a wide breadth of knowledge, truly, about things that are important to other humans. They always do want to be useful to others, not depended on at all, but respected, listened to, somebody who's thought of as intelligent, or, a good person, like a good friend or something like that. As long as things don't get that deep, they are a good person to know. They will help out a friend. The only thing that they cannot do is the emotional vulnerability. That is it. That is what attachment style means. So if you want to stay with an avoidant partner because you have a family together and you love them and they love you, but they just don't do the talks about feelings, they don't do a lot of uninitiated affection, but overall you do think that they are a good person, they keep, your life running well, they are a good parent, then you have to think about all of the positives. The positives are they will never tell you what to do because they never want you to tell them what to do. So that's the implicit contract. You can make, as I said, any decisions you want. You could focus on your career. You could focus on your friendships. You could focus on travel. You could focus on your hobbies. You could do any of that. And you know what? Every single preoccupied person, they're not all the same. There's a normal distribution of everything. And there's also a normal distribution of sensitivity. So the very most preoccupied attachment and sensitive people, they find an avoidant partner unlivable. That situation is intolerable. They can't do it. But there are other people who just need to reframe and say, actually, would I really want to give up all of my freedom, my family unit, all of our routines, a collegial friendship and love with my partner, because you can certainly love an avoidant can love. They just don't express that with this deep vulnerability and this dependence. They never need you, but they can certainly want you, right? And that could be enough for the large majority of people. As you get older too, your need for this intense, close emotional bond changes, just like all things change. The intensity of life changes. I have a podcast called Reproductive Animals. Reproductive age animals are restless, and the restlessness goes away. And after menopause, many women that were previously very, very upset with avoidant husbands, they're less upset because they are just doing their own thing. And you know what? They like doing that. They can spend as much time with the kids, the adult kids or grandkids as they want. They can travel with their friends. They no longer feel that they have this deep yearning for some sort of romantic, emotional closeness. That feels like kind of another life. And many people say, you know what, we did have problems and I'm glad that we didn't separate because it just kind of went away. It didn't have to be as big of a deal consistently over the course of the lifespan as it felt at the time to not have that deep emotional commitment. It's kind of like if you have issues with, a friend when you're in your 20s. Remember, if you're a more preoccupied attachment or a sensitive person, you would have these issues with friends where you would feel a friend is not being loyal or a friend always doesn't reach out, and it felt very, very dramatic. Then you get to midlife and you're like, oh, a friend is somebody that I'm happy to see and hang out with when we can. And that changes. It just, the tenor of the intensity really, really changes, and you no longer want the same kind of best friend relationship, most people when they're 45, as you may have wanted when you were 25 or when you were 5. Everything changes over the lifespan. So although obviously I understand from working with people over many years that it is extremely difficult and frustrating to be married to an avoidant partner, I've also now worked long enough that I see people come out on the other side of this too. It's like there's a lot of men who are sexually dissatisfied in their 30s when their sex drive is super high, and they get to their 50s and they're like, it's fine. I'm fine. I'm glad I did not throw out the marriage over that we didn't have as much kinky sex as I wanted to, which now I see as I was a young man in my 30s. I wanted to have kinky sex with everything that breathed, and especially with her, but it wasn't enough to throw away a marriage over. And if I would have left for somebody who I had kinky sex with, she probably would have been batshit crazy, and then I would have blown up my life. And there are plenty of people who say shit like that. You don't often hear people regret divorce, but also, because, people do say, I wanted to get divorced and I'm glad I didn't. That is another thing. So people who come to kind of an internal brink and then decide to stay together, they rarely regret it. Why? Cognitive dissonance reduction on both ends. Once you do something, once you fully own a choice and make it, then your mind, it just naturally comes up with all the reasons that it's good that you made that decision. And that's very adaptive, and it helps us cope and learn and grow and move on. And so if you can, in your own individual work, do the deep work you would need to do to figure out if you want to stay or leave, and really look at it on both sides. What would it look like after divorce? What would it not? What are some small ways that maybe we could learn to grow together in couples therapy that would be fine and would be enough for me, right? Or bigger ways that people learn and change in couples therapy that would be enough for me without completely overhauling this human being and trying and failing to make them into somebody who yearns for deep emotional conversation. Maybe that's not going to matter to you, and maybe it won't matter sooner than you think once you make a decision that the benefits outweigh the negatives. All right, and this is just a different frame, a different way to think about it. As always, if you need a therapist or a coach, we have great people at my practice, Best Life Behavioral Health. And thank you all for listening. You should join my secret Facebook group too, where a lot of these discussions happen about attachment style, about relationships, about all sorts of things. And I will talk to y'all soon. Have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.